The Semong, the tsunami. On the island of Simlay in Indonesia, an old woman was telling a story to her grandchildren. Once upon a time, she began, there was a little girl named Kiro. Kiro lived in our village a long time ago, before you were born, before your parents were born, even before I was born. One day, Kiro was in her house helping her mother in the kitchen. Suddenly, the ground began to shake. It shook and shook. It shook so hard that Kiro and her mother couldn't stand up, and they fell to the floor. All around them, dishes and pots were falling from the shelves and crashing to the floor. Finally, the shaking stopped. Kiro and her mother got up and walked out of the house. Then what happened, Grandma? The children asked, although they knew what had happened next. They had heard the story many times before. Kiro looked toward the beach. The grandmother continued, and she saw something she had never seen before. All the water was leaving the beach. It was going out toward the sea. Where there once had been a narrow beach, there was a wide beach. Beautiful, colorful fish were lying all over the beach. Some people were picking up the fish and putting them in baskets. Other people were standing on the beach looking out at the water. But Kiro remembered the story her grandmother had told her, so she yelled to the people. Her grandmother paused. Do you remember what Kiro yelled? She asked her grandchildren. Run, the children answered. That's right. Kiro yelled, Run! Semong! Do you remember what a semong is? A big wave, the children answered. Yes, the old woman said, a very big wave. Bigger than a boy, bigger than a girl, bigger than a house, bigger than a palm tree. She continued the story. Run, Semong, Kiro yelled. People put down their baskets of fish. They picked up their children. They ran to the hills behind our village. Then the Semong came. A wall of water came toward the village. The water covered the beach and covered the houses and covered the trees. But all the people were safe because they were standing on the hills. And that is the story of Kiro and the Semong. Why was the old woman telling her grandchildren this story? She was warning them. In 1907, a tsunami, a giant wave, had hit their island and many people had died. She wanted the children to be ready if another tsunami came. Another tsunami did come to Similay. On the morning of December 26, 2004, an earthquake in the Indian Ocean created huge waves. The waves came first to Similay, the island closest to the earthquake. A 33-year-old man named Suhardin, who lives on the coastline of Similay, told a reporter about his experience. He said his grandmother had told him stories about the Semong, but he didn't think about his grandmother's stories when he felt the earthquake. Nothing had happened after an earthquake 3 years ago. Why would there be a Semong after this earthquake? But then a man ran past him yelling, Semong! Semong! Suhardin thought about his grandmother and decided to climb one of the hills behind his village. When he got to the top of the hill, hundreds of people were already there, and more people were climbing the steep hill. Some were helping old people up the hill, and some were carrying small children. Before long, everyone in the village was on top of the hill looking out toward the sea. For 30 minutes, nothing happened. Then, just as Suhardin was thinking about walking back down the hill, the water along the coast rushed out to the sea. After that, the first wave came. A wall of water 10 meters high crashed on the shore below. Suhardin watched the water take his whole village out to sea. The tsunami of 2004 hit 14 countries and more than 280,000 people died. But on the island of Simile, with 75,000 people, only 7 died. Why did so many people live on Simile survive? They survived for 2 reasons. First, they survived because Simule's hills are close to the coast. When the tsunami came, people could run to safety. People in other places were not so lucky. They had no nearby hills to run to. Second, they survived because they remembered the stories the old people told about the Semong, stories that warned them to run to the hills after an earthquake. The people of Simile hope another tsunami never comes to their island. But just in case, they will tell their grandchildren the story of the Semong. Someday the story could save their grandchildren's lives, just as the story saved theirs.